Welcome to the 2024 Latinx Film Festival at Michigan State University. My name is Scott Boehm. I'm the founder and director of the festival. We're thrilled to be back again this year after a 4-year hiatus due to the COVID pandemic. And today in the studio with us, we have 3 invited wonderful guests. Michael Cotey, who we'll hear from in just a minute, who is a theater director and started an initiative several years ago called Enough Plays to End Gun Violence. Manuel Oliver, who will be performing a special one-night-only performance of his one-man show, GUAC. And David Kenner from the Nonviolent Project Foundation, who's involved as a sponsor of our activities for this edition of the festival. Michael, I'd like to begin with you. Could you tell us a little bit about the inspiration for Enough?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Scott, for having us. So, all of our histories are going to be a little intertwined here, but I'm a theater artist, I'm a director, and on February 14th, 2018, I'm sitting in rehearsal as an assistant director, so I didn't have much to do. I had a lot of time on my hands. And I'm sitting there and news about the Parkland shooting breaks through. And like probably everybody else, enraged, disappointed. And then what really didn't sit with me well is that we went back to work. We started making a play again. I said this to myself. I said this shouldn't be the response that the theater industry has to this ongoing, seemingly everyday American occurrence that is the gun violence epidemic. Fast forward a few years, a year or so, thinking about this, seeing what came out of Parkland, seeing the youth movement come out of it, realizing that there really isn't any great material for the theater industry to rally around and produce in one cohesive effort. I created a program called Enough Plays to End Gun Violence, and the thrust of that is to make space for that youth voice. We call on teens across the country to write short 10-minute plays that confront the issue of gun violence. We end up choosing an evening of theater, around 6 of those plays, and then we make them available to theaters, schools, community organizations all across the country that want to produce those plays on the same evening. That's our nationwide reading. We've done that for 3 years. Our first year was in the heat of the pandemic. Most of those were digital projects. We did another one of those cycles in 21-22, and then we just finished up our 3rd cycle in 2023. And across those, across those 3 cycles, we've received nearly 600 plays from young teen playwrights. There've been nearly 4,000 artists involved across the country putting on these readings. Over 14,000 people have seen these readings. Money's been raised for gun violence prevention organizations. And for us, what's really exciting to me and what I didn't even conceive of when I wrote this all down on paper and started pitching it to every theater person I knew in the country, is that theater is ripe for this kind of engagement, this kind of community engagement. These theaters that have gotten involved on this project, one, are gaining valuable insight into this issue in a way that they haven't before. 2, it hits all the points that theater is trying to, out of the pandemic and out of a lot of the movement that came out of 2020, it hits a lot of the points that theater is trying to do now, which is how do you engage the community? How do you engage on social issues? How do you make room for marginalized voices? And with Enough, what I've seen come out of it is, you see theaters teaming up with gun violence organizations, violence prevention organizations that they've never had relationships with. And consistently, over the 3 years that we've had this project, we've seen those relationships deepen and strengthen and become an important part of the community. So it's through that work that I've been able to meet some really, truly amazing individuals like Manny and David, who have been working on this issue. And I brought Manny in. I'm going to do a little segue here for you, but I brought Manny in the second round of the project as a judge, as one of the selection committee members to pick the plays. And him and Patricia and their organization Change the Ref have been just amazing supporters of this because, well, as Manny will probably tell you, like, the changes in the youth movement. It's in the vocal youth who are going to be the future of this country. And so they've been just amazing supporters of this project and amazing supporters of innovative and new ways to tackle gun violence, because talking about statistics, seeing it on the news is never been enough, unfortunately. And so Manny has been really able to see the creative approach and how changing the narrative is where you need to start.
Thank you so much. So, Manny, you went from a judge to a performer. Can you tell us a little bit about that process and give us a little bit of your story and the story of GUAC?
Sure. Well, I went from being a father to still being a father, but with a kid that became a victim from gun violence. And along with Patricia, we, like any other person that goes through this, we were lost. Well, when you lose a son, what do you do? Really, what do you do? Ask this question to yourself. And you have to find that answer. So we started doing rallies and going to events, and we became speakers. So they will give us 5-10 minutes here and there, which is not enough to explain what we feel and how amazing Joaquin's life is. And that's how we thought, well, what if we bring this to theater? What if we use theater as an effective way to communicate and get people's attention? So we did. We were able to put together initial ideas without any background in theater. Just I love theater because I go and watch theater, but never thought I would be on the other side. And then with the help of some professional theater people, we were able to put together a script, which is basically Joaquin's life. But now we have a space where people will really pay full attention to what I need to say. And I can address my story in the best way so you can understand every single aspect of Joaquin's life. It's not a sad play at all. Actually, there's a lot of emotions during the play. And a huge part of it is just having fun, enjoying a wonderful individual and things that he did and things that he was already putting together. You can tell that there's a huge intention of justice and a better future directly coming from Joaquin. So I have to say that this is the project that pulls me out of the activism in DC and it gives me like that art feeling, which I think is great. I enjoy that. And it connects me a lot with my son. So that's it. That's pretty much what it is. My favorite project from everything that we do, because it's all about Joaquin, and it gives me the chance to show you not the few minutes that February 14th took to end Joaquin's life, but the 17 years prior to that, and everything that happened after that in the way that he is already leading a movement that is certainly sooner than later finding justice and change.
Thanks, Manny. David, I'd like to bring you in here. So as a representative of the Nonviolence Project Foundation, could you tell us just briefly a little bit about the foundation and then your involvement with Manny and with Michael and with this play and also with the film festival?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you, Scott. And I have to say, it's easy even to get emotional sitting here. I feel like I'm with like-minded people who understand the nature of storytelling and how that affects change. I think about this great American writer, Tim O'Brien, who talks about the thing about a story is that you dream it as you tell it, hoping that others then might dream along with you. And hearing Manny seeing Manny do the show that he and Michael put together brings it even further into our lives. The reality is the reality. I was just sitting in Washington, D.C., and Manny and Patricia went upstairs to CNN to talk about the anniversary of Parkland, right on the heels of the anniversary of MSU, and this split screen is Kansas City. So we're in a maddening moment in American history and world history of how we treat violence and how we relate to violence. But I met Manny. It was at a theater piece at Lincoln Center, and the kids had done their plays, and they were really sweet and important. And then Manny stumbled up on the stage, and he said, "Excuse me, before I begin to speak, does anyone see Joaquin here? Anyone see Joaquin? Anyone here?" What? And everyone's looking around, and they go, "Oh," Manny goes, "Oh, no, you wouldn't see him here. He was shot in Parkland." And the house changed, and I know his power, how he tells a story, and so the Nonviolence Project got immediately involved, and the Nonviolence Project is a global foundation that promotes peace and creativity as it relates to affecting change, arts, and healing. And there's a sculpture, this knotted gun that was made by an artist, a Swedish artist, Carl Reuterswärd, and he turned the barrel, twisted the barrel into a knot to commemorate the assassination of John Lennon, the peace beetle, the man of peace. Imagine a world of peace. And so that sits at the foot of the United Nations as the symbol, international symbol of peace. And John McKenna, the country director, I'm the executive producer of the Nonviolence Project USA, and we sent Manny a big white blank sculpture of that knotted gun. And in the midst of his many, many actions that he takes all over the country, he and Patricia, his beautiful wife, are relentless and so focused. And so he was that time doing a tour of America in a school bus that goes around, and I look at it as a hope mobile, but it's also an advocacy mobile, because there he is hugging people and also making sure that they understand that what you need to do needs to be done. So get involved. So he took that knotted white sculpture and he made it into a school bus, and it's here, right here in Lansing, at a gallery. You'll tell us where, Scott. And it solidifies the message. So the Nonviolence Project is really, really proud to be part of this endeavor and to go with Manny and Patricia on their journey wherever it takes us. And we love to do workshops and global efforts to promote peace. This is not. It's an American dilemma right now, but we all crave in our hearts a peaceful world to live in, and it's getting more difficult to imagine what that's like. So we got our work cut out for us, but here we are doing as much as we can.
So, Manny, your knotted gun sculpture will be on display on Saturday afternoon at Casa de Rosado in Riotown, where we'll have a meet and greet for anybody. It's free and open to the public, so we hope that you'll come and mix and mingle with us. It's a great social space, but it's also an opportunity to interact with all of the people we're talking to today, as well as Patricia Oliver, members of our committee, and to have the experience of being in the presence of the sculpture that you've produced. So, Manny, could you tell us a little bit about the process for making that sculpture, and how, since we'll have both the sculpture and your play here with us, how do you see the relationship between these two different forms of art?
Well, expression, I will say, it's that was a hard project. That sculpture arrived our house probably, 2 years ago or so, and it was in a box, huge box, and I open it and it's white. It's a white knotted gun. And I have to do, as David said, 1,000 things, but I have to do that. So it was in our living room, and it looked pretty cool. It was even that white blank. It looked great, and I thought, maybe I should leave it like that. No, that would be too conceptual. You can't do that, and kind of lazy from me. And a lot of pressure because David did not mention that, but prior to the sculpture that I made, I saw how there is a sculpture made by Muhammad Ali. There's a sculpture made by Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney. I go like, okay, this is a little pressure on me. So it took me, I don't know, 2 years to start after thinking and thinking of crazy ideas. I was going to cover it with ants and eating the. I had crazy thoughts, and finally, we discussed and Patricia and me. We were already on the school bus. We said, what if we turn it into a school bus, and then that will be very iconic. Like, and by the way, this is not. The way that Patricia and I see this is not a problem that is only affecting schools, okay? But school buses represent kids and the future, and they're everywhere. So every morning you go and you see 5, 10 school buses on your way to work. So by doing that, it represented that, the future, and we're also driving that thing. So we're driving to the future. What is it that we want and what do we expect? So finally, I finished the project, and still afraid of anyone. Again, Ringo Starr and all the other guys sending great stuff, but it was well received, and and I love it, and I'm very proud that I'm honored that I was selected and part of that project.
Yeah, so that sculpture traveled from Times Square to Lansing. Again, it will be with us for a short amount of time. So if you're interested in this conversation and the transformative power of art and imagination, I hope that our listeners will join us. Just as a last wrap up here, there's a lot of intersections between the plastic arts and theater. We're a film festival, first and foremost, but we also integrate a lot of music into our programming. We're excited to have theater for the first time for this edition. If we could just go around the table, why do you think the arts are so important when we're talking about the issue of gun violence and violence in general?
Well, gratefully, I think there's a lot of people who are going to see Manny's show who have not had the experience Manny has had. But what Manny's show does, what the Knotted Gun does, what our plays do, are meant to bring people closer to the experience without having to go through the experience. So you may have a lot of people in the audience who are like-minded. Maybe we don't reach people who are all the way on the other side and need a ton of convincing. But we might have a lot of people who are like-minded and think that this is a huge problem and want things to be done, but don't know how to get involved and don't know what their place in change is. But by bringing them in proximity to Manny's story, to these expressions about the violence, you bring it closer to their lived experience. When we do the Enough plays and a high school does it, and you have kids up on stage doing plays written by other young people, so other people of their generation, but in the audience, you have their teachers, you have their moms and dads, their grandmas, grandparents, their aunties, uncles. They start to think about the issue differently. It's not a headline. It's not a statistic. It's not something over there. It's right here. And fortunately, there are people like Manny and Patricia who are now going through life as champions on this issue, not entirely because they chose to be, but because they have to. And that's unfair. And what these works of art are there to do are to motivate individuals who are on the cusp of taking action, calling their representative, of donating their time, of just getting more informed, just to nudge them in that direction. And I think that's where the art can be really, really, really impactful.
Yeah, I think you can spend hours and go to meetings and beg our politicians and people to understand that this is not good. People dying out of nowhere because there's someone that decided he has the right to own a gun and at some point turns into a bad person. Not cool. Art can save a lot of time. You can impact people with a huge painting, like a Shepard Fairey kind of thing. And theater is even more powerful because you have the chance to also tell the story. So I believe in art, I believe in creativity, and I believe in crossing that ethical line that politics is holding people to do here. When you're an artist, you're more open. You do whatever you want, and you can get away with it because it's art. So that's...
So how do you go from a trauma to healing? How do you go from that? And it's a bridge, and art is the bridge. It's the healing, it's the opportunity, it's non-threatening. It hits you in a place in your body that you're not even aware of. When you see the sculpture, when you see the play, you just have to let it hit you, and that's important. That change is already in you, and that's the beginning.
Thank you so much. One of the ways we envision our festival is also as a bridge between many things, and one of that is a bridge between MSU and the greater Lansing community. So we hope that we see people from campus and off campus, wherever you may be, over the course of the next 3 days. Thank you so much.